Hey everybody, this is John Hiley with DentTrainer.com. We are going to be working on this giant quarter panel dent here. As you can see, the thing is absolutely stretched out of whack. It's got quite a bit of the edge of the panel is offline. We do have a gas cap here that will not close. We got a lower body line here that's just out of whack as well. You can see here I'm going to try to close it. It will not eject. I'm sorry, it will eject, but it will not stay into place. And you can see kind of the depth of the damage here, but let's go ahead and look what's underneath the iceberg here. Let's see what's down below. Giant dent. It is the impact point was right through that plastic piece that, as you can see there, it actually snapped off all the clips that attach it to the panel. However, did not break the piece, which I'm quite amazed by that. But you can see here just a big nasty dent. And we're going to be doing a Porta Power tutorial here and showing you exactly how to move the bulk of the metal along without absolutely destroying it and chopping it up. As you guys know, my rapid metal movement technique, you've probably seen that in a couple other videos. If you haven't, well, welcome to my rapid metal movement technique here. And we're going to go ahead and, as you can see, the side of the panel is almost smashed up against the inside of that inner panel. So we're going to just get that thing off of the edge. We're going to use this inflatable technique here. And just got to get that lower metal moving a little bit before we actually get into the impact point. You can see here I'm actually pumping. I'm pumping and I'm pumping. You can begin to see a little bit of movement down there. Just a little bit. So now that we moved it out just slightly, now I can drop the ball a little further, a little deeper into where the most important impact point is. Actually, before I had a lot of trouble sliding it in there. Now it's just kind of, you can kind of see that I'm able to fit it in there rather easily. Go ahead and inject our bike pump here. And now we're going for some bigger movement. We got the thing, if you can just watch right there in the center of that damage, you can see it just begin to swell a little bit. And what we're doing, we're taking that lower pressure off of the impact point. So that's going to help us a lot when we get into doing the Porta Power. And that is perfect. I got the pressure off the bottom there. That's our impact point I'm pointing to there. And we are going to, this is like a giant set that you just piece together. You're going to watch Alan here piecing it together. And just want to give you a warning on this Porta Power. This is not something that you toy around with. If you're going to plan on using this, use it at your own risk. This is a very, very powerful tool, and be careful with it. So back into the tutorial here, Alan will literally piece these things together and make, in essence, a long rod that we're going to put in behind the impact point right here to push a ton of it out with a sweeping movement. You can see here how that impact point is up above that wall that we kind of pushed out. And right here's our Porta Power. These are all just kind of clanked together. You do have to get it pretty close. I mean, on the other side over there, we actually got one with some teeth that are holding on the interior of the wheel well wall there. And right there is our pump. So this thing probably moves out 4 inches. So you definitely want to have it where it's a couple inches within its destination. Meaning that across here, now we've actually got it secured. We've got it solid. You can see the hydraulic right there that's extended out. That's the only part of this that extends, is that base hydraulic. Okay, so we kind of got it stuck into place here. We haven't done any major movement. Now I'm actually going to put my hand down here and hold it into place while Alan just slowly pumps it. I mean, he is just slowly pumping that thing out, and there you go. You've seen some movement there. And see how he just released it there. So he actually, right there, he did the release valve and let go, and now I'm replacing it on the deepest part while Alan's kind of pumping it up real nice and slow. And you're going to begin to see some metal move here. Big, big metal movements right there. You see how that just went all the way through the whole panel? If you actually rewind that and watch it again, you can see that impact point pulled in a lot, all the way up to that crown buckle that was all the way at the top of the panel. And now Alan's doing some more pushing, and we're going right into that deepest impact point. We want to try to iron that out the best possible. It's, in my opinion, when the dents get this big and deep, this is one of the only tools that's powerful enough to actually really move that thing. And now what I'm doing is I'm pushing a tension spot up there towards the top. You can see me kind of push it and release. And I'm going to come back in here and actually push some other spots. So I'm going to go around and kind of get a feel of this dent, which lows are going to be moldable, which ones can move their way out prior to even going into the crown work up at the top. It's a rule of thumb for me that if the crown work is not going to affect the movement of the dent, then I move the dent first. If the crown work is going to move the dent, then I'll do the crown work first. Either way, you just end up chopping up the crown. And it's kind of hard to keep a crown perfectly clean, but we want to try to keep it as absolute clean as possible. So now here we are doing some more pushing in there. And again, you can do this. It's much quicker. I have Alan there helping me. But I'm going to go ahead and apply a tension spot. And you can see it right there. That's an actual tension spot that I'm holding right below the crown work. So right there's my setup. I've got it anchored in the same spot. Be careful if you push too hard. You got to watch that other end to make sure it's not bending it up or chewing it up. And there has been times where the Porta Power has been so strong that I've actually seen it go through a metal panel. So be very, very careful with it. So now that I've got that tension spot that you see down below the low that's right below my hammer strikes there, it's actually going to help me flow the crown out. If you can imagine, if you've seen one of our videos, the off-dolly technique, it's a technique of holding pressure on a low while you slap the crown, causing it to move towards that pressure point. And what that does, that makes a much more fluent crown movement, basically keeping it real nice and smooth and symmetrical during your crown removal process. And you can see there's just crowns and buckles all over this thing. In fact, when you start moving these dents out, you're going to find stuff emerge. I mean, don't think that you're ever exempt from checking it and doing crown work, stuff that you didn't even see to begin with. That's just the nature of these large dents. What I like to say, we try to break them up into pockets of smaller dents that are easier to deal with. And that's kind of where the Porta Power comes in handy. It just gets that biggest, nasty bulk of the dent out. I mean, you can see we've already got considerable improvement as far as looking at it and something that we're willing to deal with and work with. We do got that giant low right there, and that is going to prove to be probably one of the hardest parts of this repair. And there you can see the gas cap, just that movement, taking that metal away, now the gas cap shuts. So that was something of concern. We thought we would maybe have to adjust it, but it seems that a bulk of the metal, when it got pushed out, it started to settle things back in. Now you can see here we got a big old crown coming in from this direction, so we're going to go in for a little bit of cross-checking crown work. There we go. There's my setup. You can see that we still have a tension spot being held by the Porta Power in there. You can see the V going right above that tension spot. And right here is my knockdown method, and I'm using a soft tip knockdown at this point. Still got a hard crown here, and we do not want to make a bunch of major little choppiness in that line. Again, when you take down a crown, sometimes they're going to get a little bit out of control, but we want to try to minimize that as much as possible. So a nice soft tip works excellent in this situation. Not only do we use them on the back side of the panel, but we use them on the front side of the panel. So there we go. bunch of tapping up through this crown. I mean, this thing runs all the way down nearly to the right-hand corner of that gas cap opening. There you go. You're starting to see some movement there. Like literally, after doing all of this knockdown work at the top of this damage, it rolled about 2 inches of the top of that dent out. You can kind of see it flowing into our tension hold spot there. You can see movement. And occasionally, it's amazing when you do your knockdown work, it's like you hit a sweet spot and you see some big movement. It's just, you just got to keep on working it back and forth. Think of yourself as like a typewriter, typing out, going back and forth, and then you set back to the beginning, and then back and forth, little by little, taking it down. There we go. Yeah, this is one of them dents where it's inevitable. You're going to be doing a lot of an exchange between pushing and tapping. So there you go. You can see about the level where I started with the crown work and about how far that big, deep crown came down. Now we're at a point where that low down there actually got my tension hold off of it. And that low down there is settling down rather nicely. So we're going to be able to make some really decent pushes. We've made that bigger dent kind of shallow up into a couple creases coming in at a couple different angles. Again, we're going to come back around and cross-check the other side. That's one thing you're going to find with your knockdown work. You may get one side down and get it looking real well, and then come back and do some tap work on the other side. And then you're going to wind up coming back to your original angle saying, man, this needs to come down a little bit more as well. Basically, but what we're really trying to do is just relieve the tension of this giant crown buckle so we can go back into some pushing. We weren't going to get much movement down below that crown with it still there. So we got to get as much of it out as possible because some of it will come out with the pushing process. Now, there's going to be a subtle crown in there regardless until we begin pushing out them lows. And now it's just kind of going around and doing some final tapping in some spots. You can see our impact point. I'm working that out a little bit. And down here at the bottom, if you remember the original one that we actually put that basketball behind, I mean, it had a nice little nasty crown down there as well. So right here, we're just using the, it makes it a little bit nice, especially using a longer hammer to get in this specific position. It's really hard to get your head at a distance and come up exactly at this angle using a hammer knockdown. Because I'm actually kind of hanging over the trunk there, like my feet are in the back where the taillight is, and I'm just hanging over and looking down at it at that angle that the crown's actually going. A crown is so much like a crease. Your light has to be parallel to the crown as much as it has to be parallel to work out a crease. So now getting a little bit of hammer and knockdown work here. I need that hard concentration right there in the peak of the crown. I was able to move the bulk of it down. But like I always tell you, I think the hammer, the blending hammer is great to make the metal flow, but when it comes to pinpoint precision, I just don't think there's much that can take out a hammer and knockdown when it comes to that pinpointing that crown just right on top of it and driving it to where it needs to be. And you can see here I actually switched to the top of my hammer. You guys rarely see that. I mean, I only bust out this move whenever it is in there. And I need some strong pressure behind my crown work. So I flipped it over and I'm actually using the top, the actual part you're supposed to use. I prefer it as a handle, but it's just driving. You can see right there, them last few hits really drove out a lot of that crown.